is 3:10 to left, and we are here at Fenway South, JetBlue Park, where Red Sox players have been arriving over the last few days. Really, some have been here for a week or two, getting an early start. But today, with pitchers and catchers having their first workout, the arrivals matter, as we've got pitchers and catchers working out. Lots of position players here hitting as well. And we are here covering it all. Tom Karen along with Lou Merlone. Welcome to spring training, everybody. We're done shoveling at least for a little while.
It's not cold, 70 degrees. I got guys playing catch behind me, listening to BP. This is heaven, TC.
You and I were talking to Roman Anthony. He said Super Bowl Sunday he played 36 holes. You said we shoveled 8 inches. That's a different experience.
It is a different experience. But these guys have been down here now for weeks. I was here in January at fantasy camp for 2 weeks, and some of the guys were in the house. So they've been at it. I think they're kind of ready to get going, too.
You know, it's changed, right? I've been doing this a long time. You were playing for a long time, and now you've been doing this for a long time. Pitchers and catchers' first workout used to really be the beginning. Guys starting to get in shape, starting to get ready for those first bullpen sessions, live BPs. These guys show up. They've been spending the winter working in the lab trying to shape a pitch. They show up ready to throw.
It's a lot different. You know, even when the season ends, we used to give it a month, 6 weeks to kind of rest your body after a long grind. These guys, there's no break. So by the time they roll in here, you know, when season starts, they're throwing 2 inning bullpens. They're throwing live BP on the field. I mean, these guys are ready to go. You know, it's not like old days where guys, we used to, wouldn't come here to get in shape. We used to come here ready to play.
Right.
But these guys almost like a month ahead of everyone else.
40 years ago, guys showed up to get in shape.
Yeah.
20 years ago, guys showed up in shape, really just ramping up baseball.
Correct.
Now guys show up almost in mid-season form.
They do. I mean, the worst day in spring training was always day one because they jump us in day 1, day 2 at live BP. And you're facing pitchers, and you're just not ready for it. You know, nobody wants to swing. Everybody wants to track. You know, the bat speed isn't there. These guys show up day one. They're hacking because they've already been doing this for a month. So it's advanced.
Always interesting to talk about the different tiers of players at spring training.
Yeah.
Right? Rafael Devers doesn't have to earn anything at camp. But there are other guys, and you were a guy who had to come to spring training and show yourself. How different is that when you're a guy on the bubble coming into camp trying to prove something?
I hated spring training. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I despise spring training because I never came in here with a job. You know, there's some of these utility guys. There's a lot of that, guys with options that are fighting for spots on this roster. And it was, as a utility guy, you come in here and, you know, you're sitting at Nomar gets his work at shortstop and he's done for the day. Well, I'm at short, third, second base, grinding, working every single day. So it was a very stressful time for me, and for a lot of guys it is. This bullpen is very crowded. There's a lot of guys with options. Who breaks with this team in April? How long do they stay with this team? Up and down. So it is a different feeling for guys like Devers, guys that know they're going to be here, and Duran and others, obviously, just showing up, getting ready for the season, and others having to perform to make a team. So just different tiers, as you put it.
All right, let's talk about the expectations.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like an incomplete offseason. We're going to talk about the right-handed bat. Will they add somebody? But right now, because this is who's here, where do you put this team in the American League East?
Well, I think you're kind of in that middle of the pack. It can go anywhere, right? Really, based on injuries and what they do moving forward of second to fourth and fifth or whatever it may be, depending on what the teams still do. So the biggest difference to me is the pitching. It's always been about pitching. You know, you haven't really improved the infield defense, right? Although Trevor Story is a big key to that. You got to keep that guy healthy. Outfield defense is fantastic, but it's pitching. The depth has never been like this now for years. Not just a guy like Garrett Crochet on top or the ceiling of a guy like Walker Buehler, but it's the depth starters. You know, the AAA's got 3 or 4 guys down there waiting to come on and give you that spot start. So because of the pitching staff, I think there's good reasons why Cora and Breslow both yesterday said they feels like they're a playoff team, a team that can be in that second, third tier in the AL East and possibly be a wild card team.
We're going to hear from Walker Buehler in a few minutes, but you mentioned Craig Breslow. He was asked when he met with the media about the additions they could still add. Will there be a right-handed bat? Because if you look at this offense, it's essentially the same minus the right-handed power of Tyler O'Neill. Yesterday, Craig Breslow said there is still a very strong chance we add a right-handed bat to this lineup. Here's what he said.
You know, I think I've kind of maintained throughout the offseason that, number one, our goal is to put the best team together that we possibly can. And number two, we'll need to be open-minded about how we do that. Right now, you know, I think we're still pursuing right-handed bat and hopeful that we'll be able to accomplish that. And then the other opportunity that we've talked about is adding to the bullpen.
You had identified that as far back as October, November, about a right-hand bat. Are you surprised how long it's taken to?
There's always some level of surprise, I guess. Unfortunately, we don't control the timeline exclusively, and obviously we haven't lined up on anything yet, but we'll continue to be as aggressive as we can.
Do you think that bat necessarily needs to be someone who would be in the lineup every day, or could it be a platoon bat?
I think there are probably a few different ways to approach that. I think balance most likely takes the shape of someone who's in the lineup pretty regularly, but also we've seen Alex, being very aggressive in mixing and matching and using the entire roster. So I think we have to be open to all paths that improve the team, and don't want to close off any possible pathway.
Well, you heard Craig Breslow say they don't control the timeline, and when it comes to free agency, the player controls the timeline, and no one has controlled the timeline better than Alex Bregman, because that timeline has now come into camp.
Yeah.
Reports that it's down to 3 teams. Not sure if that's true, but they're saying Red Sox, Cubs, Tigers are sort of the 3. What are the chances he ends up here before it's all said and done?
I felt like a week or two ago the market wasn't going anywhere. So whether the Red Sox felt like their limit was 3 or 4 year type of deal, it may be up to him and his choice. It just feels to me like the Tigers and the Cubs have kind of gone that extra year, and you leave some of the reports, and I know we probably shouldn't buy into all of them, but to me, I don't think the possibility of Bregman right now, I'm not counting on that, and I think I've sort of turned to Arenado, who I think has been there, has always been plan B. If Bregman wasn't willing to accept a shorter-term deal, it just makes too much sense. I mean, the Cardinals want to get rid of some money. They want Nolan Gorman at third base. This is a guy that's already been traded and vetoed a trade to Houston. So to me, it's like I'm almost at the point where I'm expecting Arenado to get something done with him and bring in the right-handed bat because they need it. They've been talking about it all winter.
So let's talk about what that means. You don't bring a 10-time Gold Glove winner at third base to play second base like you were talking about Bregman. He's not going to be the DH. They've got, he's going to be the third baseman. That means Rafael Devers is not.
Yeah.
Are the Red Sox prepared to do that? I
think they are. All offseason, everybody's been jumping on Core and Breslow saying he's our third baseman, his agent. We know he wants to be the third baseman, but you start to hear right now. Like right now he is, at the time being he is. And I think it's just a move that eventually will be made. The question to me is it full-time DH, is it first base? Because I still think a lot of people saying he can't play there. I think he'd be very good at first base. I think he's got great feet. He's got some throwing issues in the past that's kind of caused his defense to decline. But I think at first base, he moves well at first. I think he'll be able to, if he bobbles the ball, he flips it to the pitcher. I think people have overestimated how much he might struggle if he goes to first.
You mentioned that slight change in how Alex Cora is answering the question about Rafael Devers. Here's what he said yesterday. Listen closely to what Alex Cora said when he was asked about Rafael Devers, the third baseman of the Red Sox.
We had conversations about where he's at right now. He was here until Friday, and he knows what's going on. We've been talking about everything from what we're trying to accomplish roster-wise to what we need to accomplish for him. And I think right now the main thing, is not positions or additions or whatever, is for him to have a healthy camp. He had a good off season as far as the shoulders. He's in a good spot. He's been here for 3 weeks. He went home, of course, to be with his family, which I don't, I love it. I really love the fact that he disconnected himself from this and went home to enjoy them. And he'll be back. But I think, the conversation with him is more about himself right now.
Is it a real possibility you move him off third?
Right now, he's a third baseman. He's the third baseman for the Boston Red Sox.
In that little clip, Alex Cora uttered the words "right now" 4 times.
Yeah.
And we weren't hearing that before. Before it was Rafael Devers is the third baseman. Now he's the third baseman right now. So clearly they're at least open to that possibility.
Yeah, and I think for me, too, is really the reaction of the first question. Normally he would come out right away and say he's our third baseman. Instead, they've had conversations. It's not about, stop worrying about what position he plays. It's about him being healthy, right? You're starting to hear these sort of things right now from him. And if you get a guy like Arenado, people wonder what the corresponding move is. You don't need to have one. There's nothing. We don't know if Yoshida's going to be healthy at the start of spring training. Last year you walked in with Casas at first, Grissom at second, and Story at short. How long did that last? Like, depth is a good thing, and it's good to be uncomfortable here in spring training with not knowing who's going to start, a 5-man rotation. Just get healthy.
You could slow play Yoshida, give
Yes.
him more time to heal from the shoulder, let Casas and Devers sort of cycle through that DH spot.
Yeah, and you can. And like you said, if you slow play and he's 2 or 3 weeks behind, what are the chances of everyone being healthy in camp? Everyone being healthy the first 2 or 3 weeks. Again, Giolito didn't make it out of camp. Grissom didn't make it out of camp. Whitlock gave you 4 or 5 starts. Story gave you 7 or 8 games. Like, it's going to happen. So keep the depth that you have.
Arenado's kind of a polarizing figure as far as fans go. Some people think he's done. You're of the type that think he could have a sort of renaissance at Fenway Park.
Yeah, he could. I mean, he could also continue to fall.
Right.
I don't know. The point is that he's a Gold Glove third baseman. Do you know how many games you have lost the last 2 years because of defense? Like, everybody just looks at the offense and say, well, look at his offense going down. I'll take Gold Glove defense, 270, 15 home runs that he gave you last year. If you get that from him, you are a better baseball team. Like, you got to catch the baseball. You feel good about short. You feel good about the outfield. Now you'd feel really good about third base.
There's a lot of talk here that the pitching will make the defense better. You can have more strikeouts, but guess what? The defense makes the pitching a lot better, too. And you've got guys coming in here who expect to win games. We'll talk about that rotation because there's no doubt, while there are still questions about where the right-handed bat will fit in here, there is no question that this is a better rotation than the Red Sox have had in quite a few years. We'll hear from Walker Buehler and talk about that rotation as we roll on right here in Fort Myers. It's Tom Caron and Lou Merlone, 3:10 to left. Welcome back. It is sunny here in Florida. Sorry to rub it in. It's been a cold winter back north. Not a lot of snow. Now they're getting snow.
Yeah, it's been colder than usual.
I've said this for a long time, and I'm a pretty, I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, some say.
More for the most part. That's the image.
Yeah.
But it's not fun being down here if people aren't miserable back home. Like, that's part of the fun of being here.
I try to avoid telling my wife how warm it is down here, and I'm worried about the sunburn and everything else because, trust me, she doesn't want to hear it.
Especially with Valentine's Day coming, you might want to keep that to yourself. This rotation is undoubtedly better.
Yeah.
And it is interesting, right? For all the talk that this team didn't do enough, if you'd have made these moves, if you'd have signed Buehler this week and traded for Crochet last week, people would probably be getting fired up about this team. But if you look at what this rotation was last year, it was better than people expected. Mm-hmm. But you were leaning on guys you didn't know at this point last year whether Tanner Houck could handle the workload, whether Cutter Crawford could make more than 30 starts. What was Brian Bayo? We're still figuring that out to an extent. Now those guys being pushed back down by a couple of guys at the top of the rotation.
Yeah, and that's the whole part, right? You got 3 guys you can count on that last year I thought really took nice steps. And even Bayo, the second half of the year, right? I thought he threw the ball a lot better. But now you put guys on top, where they don't have to carry that kind of weight. Garrett Crochet is an animal. This guy on top of the rotation, he's a swing and miss monster. He was fantastic for the White Sox the year before till basically July. And then they had to control his innings. He didn't throw much the last couple, but there's a foundation year for him. Walker Buehler is the ceiling. You got to keep him healthy, right? I think 30 starts only twice in his career. So what are you going to get from him? And Giolito's another one that people really aren't counting on or even talking enough about, although it's his first year back from Tommy John, so we'll see what he looks like. But it's good. There's a ceiling to it that we haven't seen before, at least in quite some time, and it's deep.
Walker Buehler was the opening day starter for the Dodgers a couple years ago. Garrett Crochet was the opening day starter for the White Sox last year. I mean, these are the kind of, again, Crochet, it's a very short track record, right? As strange a circumstance for a guy developing as you're ever going to see. The minor league season wiped out because of COVID. They throw him right into the majors. Coming back from surgery, they take his time with innings, and he's a reliever. Last year, they throw him into the fire, and he was phenomenal. Second half numbers not as good, but he never went more than 4 innings in a start. It was a strict innings limit on him last year. Any concerns about that second half?
No, not at all, because it was planned. They could have very easily shut him down. A lot of people talking about the demands he made at the deadline. Well, the demands because, if you're going to trade for me, I've been throwing 12 innings the last 2 years. You're going to keep running me out there for a playoff push, sign me into extension because I'm probably going to blow out again. So they really had to be careful with him at all. I mean, listen, the guy's a pig. All right, he's absolutely filthy. I remember we rolled in there in June. He and Scuba were like right there 1 and 2 with all these numbers. Swing and miss, whiff rate. And when you're a poor defensive team, but you got a guy that strikes out a third of the hitters he faces, guess what? You become a better defensive team because balls aren't put in play. And that's just who he is.
So I think the expectations for Crochet are that you're going to build off last year.
Yeah.
You're going to be a Skubal-type starting pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. The real wild card is Walker Buehler.
Yeah.
Because if this guy gets back to what he was, and we saw him the last 10 outings in the playoffs, he didn't give up a run. He closed out the World Series. I mean, this guy is the real deal when healthy. But he's had 2 Tommy Johns.
Yeah.
And 10 years later, it's not as easy to come back from Tommy John as it was when you were 20, 21 years old.
Yeah.
How good can Buehler be, and what do you think he'll
Well, I
do?
like the potential. I mean, it's like ace-type stuff, potential. Swing and miss, make the hitter uncomfortable. That's the type of stuff he has. The real drop-off is, and we talked to him earlier, like the whole first Tommy John when you're 21 is a lot different when you get older. And last year was a struggle for him, particularly his fastball. I mean, the value of his fastball dropped. It used to be one of his best pitches. Last year it wasn't at all. So, but he had that year. Now he's got a healthy offseason. We saw what a healthy offseason for the first time for Chris Sale did for him last year down in Atlanta. You're looking at this guy right now. I'm not saying he's going to win Cy Young. I'm just saying a healthy offseason for a lot of these guys that battled it, like a Liam Hendricks. Now they come into camp and they're ready to start it up.
Caught up with Buehler this morning at the clubhouse before they took the field for the workouts. Here's what he had to say.
Trying to get my bearings a little bit, but today's a big one. I got a bullpen today, so that'll be kind of, the first big thing other than playing catch. So, I'm enjoying it.
You sign with somebody in the offseason, it's kind of philosophical, right? You're like, you're going someplace new, but you're not there yet. Right. You're here now, boots on the ground. How different is it?
Yeah, it's great. The guys have been cool and kind of trying to get to know everybody and trying to get the culture around here, kind of find my little place in it. But, I'm looking forward to it.
Bullpen today, where you at? How do you feel? What are you hoping for today?
Yeah, feeling good. I threw some hitters back home last Friday, so that's kind of a big step forward for me in terms of the timing of it. You guys don't know that well, but I'm typically a little bit of a late starter, so throw a bullpen today and face some hitters on Saturday.
Finishing like you did in the playoffs last year, how much confidence that give you going into the offseason, knowing you're sort of back to what you want to be and you're having a normal offseason?
Yeah, I mean, the last month of the season and then the playoffs, obviously, I think I threw the ball a little bit better, and it's just not as easy to rehab and get back like it was when I was 20 or 21 when I did it the first time. So, I feel really good physically, and now it's kind of getting everybody on the same page, including me, about how we want to go and attack some guys and kind of where I fit in on this team.
I know you know Kenley and Rich Hill. They played here.
Yep.
Have they told you anything about Boston?
No, just to enjoy it, man. I think obviously coming from LA, the kind of fans are very passionate out there, but it's hard to beat the fans in Boston from what I've heard. So I'm looking forward to kind of opening weekend and feeling that all out.
You say you're usually a slow starter. Kind of what's making this year different?
I think the timing of it. I think the further away you get from surgery for a while, it gets easier and easier. And I just think I kind of put myself in a pretty good position this offseason to keep my arm going and keep some of the kind of cobwebs out of there that can get you in some trouble.
Do you have a goal in how many innings you want to throw this year?
I've gone 200 before. I think there's a lot of pride in that for me. And listen, I'm 30. I'm not 38. I think that's still on the table. And as long as I perform, I don't see why I can't throw 180, 200 innings.
What's it like kind of being in a different camp for the first time?
It's different, man. It certainly is. Obviously, Florida versus Arizona and all that kind of stuff. But just kind of trying to take it in and figure it all out.
For me, finally, bullpen so early, even in the time you've been doing this, how different is it? Guys used to come and start getting ready for that bullpen. Now guys show up ready to throw a bullpen. Like, how much have you seen that change?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I've faced hitters back home already, which is interesting. So, the game has changed, man. Physically, the demands are a little different than they used to be. I think the floor of kind of the quality of what we're trying to do is higher than it probably used to be, and we're not having to work jobs in the off season and things like that. So, the league and the teams have afforded us the opportunity to really kind of learn and kind of improve in the off season as opposed to just try and get through and get back to spring. So, I know we all enjoy the tinkering and all that stuff, and that's great. And we'll keep doing that for a couple weeks and then kind of try and figure out how to start getting guys out. And
anything new for you this offseason? Were you tinkering anything you hadn't before?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always playing with change-ups. I'm always playing with certain grips and trying to get slider cutter to move a little bit different. And, for me, I think I'm probably going to have a little bit more of a diverse mix than I have in years past, just moving and mixing and matching. And but at the end of the day, I'm still trying to get my four-seam fastball to be a really good pitch like it was for a lot of years. And hopefully we see a little uptick in that.
You know about LA traffic. What have you heard about Boston traffic and rotaries and one-way streets?
Yeah, I haven't heard a ton about it. What do you guys call them? The rotaries? Okay, we call them roundabouts back home. But no, I mean, I've operated a few of them in my life, but I guess I'm going to get kind of a crash course when we get up there.
Do you know what a blinker is?
A blinker? Yes.
Blinker.
Yeah. The right or left turn signal? Yeah, I got you.
It's blinking.
How many times did you watch the last out of the World Series?
A couple, I don't know, a lot, but no, it's fun, man. That's one of those things that, you dream as a kid and it happens and feels kind of unreal. One of the other cool parts about it is Josh Spores, who got the out the year before, was one of my best friends, and so to do that kind of back-to-back years is pretty cool.
If I were him, I'd have that last out on my phone. Like, whenever I turned on my phone, it'd be the final out of the World Series. He's an interesting guy. He's a cerebral guy. And he talked about the tinkering of the pitches. And you mentioned before, what he's got to do is get that four-seamer back to close to what it was, because that was an elite fastball.
It was always his best pitch, value-wise, too. And then last year just didn't show up, right? And the changeup is another one. He doesn't throw it all that much, but that was a big difference the last couple of years, too. So, but really, to me, it's about the experience. I mean, this guy's got so much postseason experience. He was a young starter with that Dodger staff. Now he kind of comes in as the vet, right, which I think is desperately needed. Even Crochet, who we're counting on, is a young pitcher, young starter in this league. So I think that's the veteran presence. I think he and Giolito, where they really help.
Don't forget that Game 3 of the World Series, he was dominant for 7 innings.
Yeah.
I know it was long gone when Max Muncy ended it, and we all talk about Nathan Eovaldi, but he was as good as it gets against the Red Sox.
Yeah, no, he's nasty when he's on top of his game. And it's nice for him, too, I think, finishing the way he finished, right? The 10 scoreless in the World Series. He got roughed up in one start against the Padres, I think, earlier. But after that, he was absolutely lights out. So I think that just sort of builds confidence for any athlete. I don't care how much success you've had, you want to finish strong.
All right, if that's the way it plays out, let's say Giolito's your 3 or 4, somewhere in the middle. You're talking about Houck, who was an all-star last year, being in the middle or even back end of the rotation. We mentioned Bayo. Crawford could be a number 6.
Yeah.
Guy made 33 starts last year. I mean, the back-end depth could be really good on this
Yeah,
team.
it could. And listen, if everybody gets out of camp healthy, then we can start talking about 6-man if you want, Remember, Giolito is coming off Tommy John. So what's the inning total for him? Do he and Crawford kind of split the years? Crawford be a weapon out of the bullpen, along, multi-inning guy early on until maybe there's an injury and he's the first guy that goes in. So it's deep, it's talented. They've added some swing and miss, which they desperately needed. But, again, we go back to the depth. There's going to be 3 or 4 guys down in AAA that we saw last year that can come up here and give you a start, which is something they never had.
Cooper Criswell,
yeah.
Right? I mean, he's either going to be in the bullpen making a spot start, or he's going to be in Worcester able to get called up. They didn't have that kind of depth. And Fitz and Priester, I mean, there are guys who have upside.
In 2018, you ask Corey, he'll talk about Brian Johnson, Hector Velasquez all day long.
MVPs.
Like, he just they're the reasons why, right? But when you do have 13 starts in a row and you can just call a guy up that can give you 5 or 6 maybe and keep you in a ball game, just to reset everything, I think that is huge.
Yeah, there are questions about what the lineup's going to look like, but there's no doubt that you should feel excited about this rotation because it has been dramatically improved if everybody gets through this camp healthy. And we're just beginning camp and just beginning our 3-10 to lefts from spring training. We'll come back and talk about the wave of prospects that we've been talking about for years and that Alex Cora was talking about knocking on the door right now. That's next on 3-10 to left.
Talk to the rookie development program, and Narvaez was there, Roman, Campbell, and kind of like walk them through what is this all about, right? And just to make sure keep doing your routines. I think that's the most important thing. The training environments are a lot different to when I used to come here as a player. Yeah, you were in shape, but baseball shape, you were behind. You were trying to get your swing right, all that stuff. These guys are way ahead. So trying to make sure they know that what they've been doing the last few years works, and we're not going to get in the middle of it, right? If you want to hit high velo machine BP, we'll do it, And also, I think they're used to it. I was against talking about the kids, right? A few years ago, I was very mad when the first question was about Marcelo. Now it doesn't matter, I think, we're in a spot that they're here. Like I told them last year, there's no age limit to make the big leagues. You can make it at 20, you can make it at 32. You know, it's up to you. And they did an outstanding job last year. Obviously, with Marcelo, the injury at the end put him a little bit behind in a sense. But you know, you talk to Chad and you talk to the coaches, to Epi and then to Trace, and they're good. They're really good.
That's Alex Cora talking about the young prospects back here on 310 to left. It is different, right? Because we've been talking about these guys for years, but we've been talking about what they might someday become. Now we're beginning spring training with the idea that if one or two or three of these guys blows you away, they can make the team.
Yeah, no, this is what you're excited about. At least I am, about camp. You know, last year they would call them up for a game or two, and you get to see them play one game. Now we're going to get a good long look at all three of these guys. They're going to get a ton of at-bats. And it is exciting because I think a lot of these guys, as he mentioned, Marcelo was behind. You know, last year when these guys got promoted to AAA, he had the injury right away and didn't have any AAA at bats. So he is a little bit behind. But the other two guys are coming here right now to try to make this team.
It's interesting, right? Because Anthony is the number one prospect in baseball. Maybe number two if you count Roki Sasaki, who's going to go right to the majors. So I don't know if I count him. But he is a guy who's gotten a lot of hype because of his play. But he's the outfielder, which is the more crowded position, right? It's easier to see him by resume making the major league team, but harder to see him by position.
100%, you know, and people rave about what he can be. It's and being the number one prospect in baseball. But, you know, the offseason could have went many ways. You know, they could have been in a Abreu trade. There's rumors of that. There could have been guys moved and opened up a spot for him. But at this point, at least, it hasn't happened. So it is tougher for him to make the team out of camp. The reason why we're talking Campbell more is the obvious competition that you have at second base. But Roman Anthony's a guy that, you know, he's down in AAA, and if he is depth, boy, you feel real good about that if something happens in May or June or whatever, and you got this number one prospect to bring up.
I spoke with him today. Interesting guy. He's very mature and well-spoken for a young guy who's still making his way, but had to deal with the hype in the offseason, being the number one prospect in baseball, and now the opportunity that is in front of him at spring training. Here's Roman Anthony as he got ready to take the field today.
It's awesome. I think that's the goal. You know, when you get drafted, is to put yourself in this position and as quickly as you can to, you know, get to big league camp and to possibly win a job and help this team as soon as possible. I think that's the goal for all of us. So it's exciting to finally be here and have that chance. So I'm really excited for it. I'm going to have fun with it. I'm going to enjoy it.
Is it a little different this camp, knowing that?
Yeah, but I don't think anything really changes as far as, you know, me or the way I go about my daily work or the way I play on the field. Obviously, the situation's a little different. You know, last year kind of knew I was going to start in AA and go from there. And this year I don't really know anything about where I'm going to start or what's going to happen. But, you know, it all goes back to just having fun and being myself and, you know, playing the game that I love and learning from the guys around me.
When you get named the number one prospect in baseball, I'm sure there's some texts, some phone calls, some friends. What was the noise like? And, you know, was that a change in the offseason, learning to sort of dial that out, learning to compartmentalize it?
Yeah, it's definitely tough to avoid at first. But, again, I really not too worried about it, not really, you know, diving too deep into it. It's good to be acknowledged for what I've done in the minor leagues. But, you know, I said earlier, being here in this locker, nobody cares about that. It's just about trying to help this team win, trying to help this team be a better ball club, and you know, for me, trying to go out and make a team so I can contribute. So it's good, it's nice, and it is tough to block out, but not really too worried about it.
See, finally, I've asked you this for a couple of years now, but the part of being part of a future that looks pretty exciting, and that future is now or close to now, right? A young group coming together. How exciting is that? Even the guys who are already here. There's a lot of young players here. You're not just one young guy joining a veteran team. Is it exciting to think about what can happen here over the next few years?
Absolutely, yeah. It feels young in here. It feels, you know, the energy is awesome. It's electric, honestly. Being next to all these guys, being next to Marcelo, Khristian, and you know, all the guys that are here. It's a really fun time, and it's pretty special that we're all here and kind of in a similar situation. So it's going to be an exciting spring, and I think we're going to push each other, and it's going to motivate, you know, all these young guys that aren't on the team to look at the young guys who are on the team and say, hey, this is going to be us, and to just enjoy it and learn from these guys and go out and compete.
So, Roman Anthony, I think, is kind of the easiest guy to say what he has to do here at spring training. He's just got to keep doing what he's going to do and wait for the opportunity. Wait to see what happens in the outfield. So I think Roman Anthony is just kind of clear. He's going to be an outfielder here. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, and, for these guys, too, it's about keeping improving, checking off boxes throughout the minor league system, which he had done. And then, 2 years ago, as great as he was, and that's when he soared, he still had .213 against lefties. And it was question about breaking ball. Well, all he did this past year was go and hit .313 against lefties. He hit lefties better than he hit righties. So it's like constantly checking off boxes, constantly getting better, which is really what impresses, I think, the organization and all of baseball when it comes to him.
Marcelo Meyer was the guy we were talking about 2 years ago. He was the fast-track guy, but injuries at the end of each of the last 2 years, and durability is still a question.
It is, and that's why he's a step behind. Like 2 years ago, he tore up high A, they bent him to double A, and he got hurt, and he didn't perform well. This past year, double A to triple A, never got the at-bats to triple A because of the injury. For him, it's all about staying healthy. They still believe in the kid. The kid can still be a star at shortstop or maybe even third base. We'll see where the future holds. And they'll move him around here more in camp. You just got to stay healthy. And just like the other two have, which is the reason why they've soared.
And real quickly, 30 seconds, if you had to say right now who's the starting second baseman, and if it's between Vaughn Grissom and Khristian Campbell, who's got the inside track?
Well, I think the ceiling is higher for Campbell, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if you see maybe a Grissom Hamilton to start to give Campbell, get his feet wet in AAA and go from there.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. You didn't mention Alex Bregman, so I assume that means he's not your second baseman.
They didn't yesterday either.
We'll take a break, come back with more as the Red Sox get ready to go. Aroldis Chapman out here throwing low to high hundreds as he joins the team for his first official workout. We'll come back and wrap up 3:10 to left after this. Walker Buehler out on the field talking to pitching coach Andrew Bailey. Bailey's not telling him to scrap the fastball, is he?
I hope not. Same thing with Crochet.
He's not going to tell Crochet not to throw the fastball. He's not going to tell Aroldis Chapman don't throw fastballs.
Oh, my God, no. No. We want some power. Same thing with Hendricks. Get that thing back to 97 and let it eat.
It is remarkable what they did last year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the beginning of the fewest fastballs really like in modern history for the most part. But they were able to maximize Houck and Bear and get the best out of their stuff.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, too, in that midseason when they weren't throwing the ball well, I thought they got predictable. I thought there were obvious sweeper counts, off-speed counts, and teams are doing a good job with scouting, too. I mean, you can shock the world the first month of April by throwing nothing but sweepers in counts, but when you start getting into June, July, and they had some issues, they got predictable. They did a nice job, though, later in the year, I felt like. In September, they kind of all came back. And so it's just that balance of knowing how we want to attack hitters, but without being predictable and letting these big league hitters sit on stuff.
These early days, you're watching pitchers. Buehler again throwing a bullpen. What are these guys hoping to get it's your first bullpen, not just of the season, but with a new team. What is Buehler trying to get out of a day like this?
Well, especially a guy like Buehler who came up with one organization, and I think the first time I did that, it was like just try to be yourself. Don't try to show everybody who you are. You are who you are, right? So for these guys, it's more the pitchers. Maybe they're trying a different pitch, as Walker talked about his changeup. Maybe they want to see how that thing looks. Crochet just started throwing that sinker last year, kind of build off that as well, and maybe just tinkering with some usage. I think it's more of that, but really it's about health. More than anything for these guys. Get through it.
We talked about at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
The tiers. Walker Buehler's not trying to make this team.
No.
He's trying to be healthy come March 29th or whatever that is.
That's all that matters. Now, the hitters, similar things, right? This is a dangerous time of year. We've seen it before in camp. You see some of the numbers. This is where the majority of injuries do happen across baseball. So you just sort of cross your fingers and hold your breath.
Yeah, we mentioned Vaughn Grissom. He got hurt right at the beginning and really never got out of it.
Yeah.
Went through an entire year dealing with that. But we're just getting started. It's day one down here in Fort Myers. Don't forget, every night we come your way with Red Sox from Fort Myers. We'll be here tonight, and we'll be joined by Chief Baseball Officer Craig Breslow. Try to get some answers about will they add a right-handed bat? And what are we looking for here as spring training begins? And we hope you join us then, and we thank you for joining us now. First 3:10 to left is in the books for Lou Merlone and our entire hard-working crew down here in Fort Myers, as well as back up north at the mothership. Stay warm. We've got baseball and palm trees. We'll do our part to bring spring to you throughout these next 2 weeks.